Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Guest interviews include entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Be sure to listen up. This is important because it's your money. Your money. Be sure to listen to Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. Thursdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on 98.7 The Coast.
And welcome to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live from beautiful Wildwood, New Jersey, here on 98.7 The Coast. Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm so happy to be here tonight. Actually, to be honest, I'm really happy to be anywhere. I will tell you that 2022 is just really just doing a bang-up job on me this year. So far, I have had COVID, tested positive for that on January 2nd, and then today I had a root canal. So I'm just really just doing well here in 2022. It can only go up from here, right? Good, just doing great. So anyway, I'm just happy to be anywhere and happy to not be in pain anymore. So that's good. Tonight's guests on Money Talk with Melanie will be political and economic commentator Craig Huey will be our 7 o'clock hour guest, and then our 8 o'clock hour guest will be Million Dollar Passion podcast host Victoria Wieck. And if her name sounds familiar, if you watch HSN, Home Shopping Network, if you're like a long-time fan of HSN and Victoria Wieck sounds familiar, that's because she's got some dazzling jewelry on there, and she was on HSN for 19 years. And you might have a piece of Victoria Wieck jewelry. Well, she also has a podcast. She's a very interesting person, and she's got a great story. And we're going to have a chat with her about sitting on $1 million ideas and overcoming obstacles and things like that. I think it's going to be a really good chat. So I'm excited to talk with her this evening. If you want to, so let's talk about the Melanie media recap. I only did one hit this week. I slowed down this week. This week, I only did one hit on Newsmax. I got to talk about, well, there's a university IT department. I forget what university it was, but they came up with this whole entire list of trigger words that they don't want anybody to say on their website, like grandfather, because it dates back to like the 1800s, and it's really offensive to black people, apparently, because it was a word that was used to keep black people from doing something. And I know that I, for one, as a black person, stay up really late at night and lose much sleep over what happened in the 1800s that kept black people from doing. No, I really actually don't. So, but thank goodness for liberals for good looking out for them for eliminating words in 2022 that were offensive in the 1800s, so that people like me can live better lives, but not really. So I talked about that on Newsmax, and then the other thing that we talked about was COVID masking policies. And one of the things that I discussed was the fact that masking policies seem to be, and I don't know why bureaucrats do this, but seem to be one size fits all. Like, why don't we cater to the individual instead of having these one size fits all masking policies? Because the fact of the matter is that we're all different when it comes to the masking policies, but you seem to have these two factions. You have this one faction that's like everybody should wear masks to protect all, and now you have these other factions that say, having to wear a mask is tyranny, and it's it's a matter of control, and it's a violation of our freedoms. And I kind of go with the perspective of whoa. I think a balanced perspective is the way to go. There are kids who have special needs, for whom wearing a mask can be problematic. Maybe not have those kids wear masks. Maybe make them social distance. I'm a social distancer, personally. I have people in my family who have compromised immune systems. Therefore, when I'm out and about, I social distance everywhere I go. I may or may not wear a mask because I have asthma. It's uncomfortable for me to wear a mask. But I also show social distance because I don't want to infect someone who may be getting treated for cancer or may have an autoimmune disorder, because there are a lot of people who look really healthy who have autoimmune issues that you would never know. And quite honestly, I think, just be nice to your, it's not tyranny to be kind to your fellow humans. I know a lot of my conservative friends are not going to be, really happy to hear that, but I just think that we can be kind to our fellow humans and maybe mask up if we can't social distance, or just social distance because there are people, out here dealing with things that we can't possibly imagine, even though they may look perfectly healthy. So I just think that it can be, we can be balanced out here and just be considerate until the pandemic is over. So the two clips of my comments on Newsmax are posted on all my social media at Money Talk Mel on Twitter, at Money Talk with Melanie on Facebook. Also, be on the lookout for a show called Red and Black, where I am a co-host along with a gentleman called Jeff Charles, Dr. Chris Metzler, and Lindy McAllister. And I'm the only girl, but we all happen to be black, and the show is called Red and Black because we all happen to be black Republicans. So, but it's a pretty good show, and we are on YouTube, and the show premieres every Saturday at 12. So be on the lookout for that on all of my social media. So anywho, what is on the news? In the news, I ran into, as usual, a few interesting things in the media. One interesting article I ran into was one about 4 things that most people don't get about extreme wealth. And this is according to a financial advisor that works with people like athletes and celebrities. I actually have a relative who's in the NBA, and that's why I found this article particularly interesting. So one of the things that he says here is just because someone is rich doesn't mean that they're good with money. That is so very true. A lot of people may look like they're rich, and instead of having money, what they have is debt. And I tell my students that I teach financial literacy to all the time. I'm like, you may see somebody who seems like they have a lot of money, and what they really have is debt. In fact, truly wealthy people tend to look like they don't have a lot of money. It's very funny that way. People who are wealthy a lot of times don't buy a lot of flashy things. Rich people do that, but wealthy people tend not to. Look at, if you want to put that to the test, take it next time you see Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk. Observe them just a little bit. Take a look at what they're wearing. Take a look around. Just observe. And so, do they have on, flashy? Are they wearing like super flashy clothes? Are they wearing, $2,000 sneakers? I bet you they are not. I'm just saying. A lot of times, rich does not mean good with money. Everybody needs some type of advisor, especially if you get a lot of money. If you win a lottery, one of the first things you should invest in is some type of financial advisor. Athletes need really good financial advisors, yes. Particularly since usually when they fall into that money, they're really young and have no clue what they're doing. Like they're babies, and they have no clue what they're doing. So their top earning years are between ages 20 and 30. So, and then as they get older, unless they really get really good endorsement deals and things like that, they're not going to be earning that much money as they get older. So they need to know how to invest and how to make that money last in the long term. The other thing, if you ever heard, okay, now I'm gonna date myself, but there was an old rap song called "More Money, More Problems." This is the third thing that this advisor says, that big money can cause big problems, and that is absolutely true. And when you are a celebrity or an athlete, when you fall apart and when you have problems, all of that stuff is out in public. It hits social media. It goes viral. A lot of money makes your life very complicated. And when you make a financial mistake, everybody knows about it. You're a celebrity and you loan a friend like $2 million. Everybody knows about it. It's a whole problem. You buy your girlfriend. Yep. You buy your girlfriend, a $2 million engagement ring, and you guys, break up a month later. Everybody knows about it. It's a whole problem. So, I'm not suggesting that we should feel sorry for the very wealthy. I'm just saying that they have problems that we can't imagine. And then finally, for celebrities, financial health often depends on the quality of their advisors. And that is very hard too, because I feel like a lot of celebrities and entertainers and whatnot want to hire their friends and their family instead of being objective and finding someone ethical to work with. Like, a lot of these people end up getting got and getting swindled and things like that because they don't hire somebody that has their best interest at heart. So that's a dilemma for people like that. So don't make those kind of mistakes if you come into a lot of money. You know how you'll know that I came into a whole lot of money? I'm very active on social media. When you see all of my social media completely disappear, you will know. I have not been abducted. I just came into a whole heap of money, and I am gone. Only people who are truly close to me will know where I've gone to, where I went, and I will have disappeared. Trust me. And I already have some really good financial advisors. I'm good to go. Okay. Another article that I ran into says 1/3 of Americans admit. How do you feel about this? And if you want to call in to talk about this, we have a couple minutes. Admit that they financially cheat on their partner. Our call-in number, if you want to call in, I thought I'd give you the number. The number is 609-522-0987, 609-522-0987. Do you financially cheat on your partner? 1/3 of Americans admit that they do. And what is financial cheating? That is spending money that you're not supposed to spend. If you have an agreement that, for example, if I spend more than $300, we're supposed to let each other know. That's an example. And then you spend $500 and you don't tell your partner that you're spending $500. That is considered financial infidelity. If you take out a credit card and you don't tell your partner that you took that credit card out. So like you're carrying debt that you're not supposed to be carrying and you don't tell your partner about it. That is financial infidelity. And the thing is that many people believe that that's worse than like sexually cheating. That's like a lot of people have that thing. That's kind of, I don't know if I agree with that. I think I'd rather you spend money that you're not supposed to be spending. But 30% is really high. And I think the reason why people have money secrets is because they want to avoid the argument, right? And I think a lot of people don't think it's cheating. Like they don't recognize it as financial infidelity. I don't know. But 1/3 seems super high. but they don't recognize it as infidelity. But 1/3. Wow. 14% said that they didn't trust their partner with money. Another 14% said they had a secret stash. Now, this doesn't surprise me. In case the relationship ended poorly. I think a lot of women do that. For 13%, the extra money was being used to support an addiction. That's scary. Now, I listen. See, I not get into this argument on social media all the time about women and not having. See, it used to be back in the day that the man went to work and the woman stayed home with the kids, right? And that was, and that's the way it was. But then, like, I feel like this is my personal opinion. And is not reflected on the owners or the sponsors of 98.7 The Coast. What I'm about to say, but I feel like some men, could have like a second family somewhere, could have a little girlfriend, or could just like up and roll anytime they wanted, or could just act any way they want. And the woman was just kind of stuck. Like, didn't have her own education, didn't have a paycheck of her own, and just kind of had to deal with whatever she had to deal with from her husband. But, like, now it's not like that. Women are making their own money, can support themselves, so they don't have to put up with a lot of foolishness. So, and I think that because the divorce rate is upwards of 50%, that a lot of women have their own little stash on the side. I don't think that men typically do that, but I think a lot of women do. And I'm not saying that I've ever done that. I'm not saying that I've ever done it, but I'm saying I think that a lot of women do. I'm personally a fan of each person having their own money because I don't want my significant other to really know how much I spend on stuff because it is ridiculous. And I don't think he needs to know all that. It's just, you don't need to know the actual numbers. That's why I have a job. You don't need to know the actual the actual numbers. I don't feel like you need to know that. So that's kind of my opinion on that. But 30% of people do it. I think that you should just contribute to the household bills, and because like I said, I feel like if my significant other actually knew what I spent on some things, it might freak him out. So it's best that he live in ignorance when it comes to that kind of thing. So anywho, our guest that's coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, his name is Craig Huey. He's a political and economic commentator. And what we're going to talk to him about is, speaking of spending money, is what D.C. is spending our tax money on. Shocking things that D.C. is spending our tax money on that you might not know about. Very interesting political and economic commentator. Very happy to have him on the show. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm Melanie Collette. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette, and this is Money Talk with Melanie. Our next guest name is Craig Huey. I'm very excited to have him on the show this evening. He is a political and economic commentator and much, much more. And we're going to talk to him about some shocking ways that they are spending your tax money in D.C. I'm very excited to have him on the show. Without further ado, it's Craig Huey. How are you?
Melanie, I'm doing great. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much for being on the show. And I did not do your introduction any justice. Before we even go any further, I'd love for you to tell the audience a bit about your background.
Well, for over 30 years, I've been a small business owner. I've created thousands of jobs. I have been able to help turn many people into multimillionaires with the marketing and advertising agency that I have. And one of the things I've been doing for the last 10 to 15 years is warning people about what is going on in their state and in their national governments. And I have a newsletter that's one of the largest in America, talking about economic and political issues. And I've written a couple books, 2 marketing books, one on integrated multi-channel marketing, which gives all the latest strategies and tactics, and then a book on the deep state, talking about the bureaucracy, and one called The Christian Voter.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that. And I was looking at a couple of your most recent articles, and I thought I talked to the audience about this because I thought it was so important. Listen, I of course did not, the audience knows it's no secret that I'm very right-leaning, that I voted for Trump, did not vote for Biden, and I was very worried about President Biden getting elected. And I have to say, I did not think he was going to do a good job, but he has far surpassed anything that I thought that he would do, as far as how terrible he is as a president and how bad that things are. And I was looking at one of your most recent blog posts. It talks about the ways that D.C. is spending our money, and I thought that our audience would really want to know about the things that you talked about, because it really is shocking the way the money is being spent politically, the way it's being used to divide us, particularly racially and culturally. I just thought it was shocking, and that, they hear it from me all the time, but I thought they should hear it from someone else.
Well, Melanie, it is shocking. It is very, very disturbing, because if anyone listening is paying taxes and they don't recognize how their tax money is being used to advance political ideology, radical politics, radical left-wing pro-socialist concepts that are being funded in the federal government. And you can see in smaller areas, in different ways, depending upon the state you live in, and certainly among school boards and some of the school districts. Let's just take the federal government. So with the federal government, you basically have a bureaucracy of people who are getting money that's unaccountable, money that can't be traced back. What they do on their job, very few people know. And you're talking about the upper echelon coming in at Biden's request. So what President Biden did is he went back to his resources that he learned with President Obama. President Obama was the first president, Melanie, to, instead of looking for the best bureaucrats to run a different agency, he put in people who were ideologues. The average age of the bureaucrats dropped from in the 40s and 50s down to the 20s and 30s. People fresh out of college, people who were political activists, people who wanted to mobilize and use the government to transform our culture and politics, to take our economics and our business system and turn it more into a government control and for individual freedom, more coercion over the lives of the individual. And what Biden did, Trump tried to stop it. Trump tried to drain the swamp, and this bureaucracy fought back against him. Obama, before he left office, had made it impossible to fire many of these bureaucrats. So he was stuck with them, and they were the resistance, and they wouldn't carry out the orders. They sabotaged what he did. They leaked things to the press. It was a nightmare for Trump.
Now, how were they able to do that? Was that through having them be in a union, or
no?
Like, how were they? How was he not able to fire these people?
Okay, so there is an organization within the bureaucracy that hires and fires, and this was all appointed by President Obama, and then a law was changed that said this organization within the bureaucracy can only hire and fire. And so the president is basically relying upon this organization that Obama set up within the federal bureaucracy to do the hiring and firing. So when Biden comes in, he basically, in the Department of Justice, puts in lawyers that are political activists. In the Department of Transportation, he puts in people who aren't experts in transportation. They may never have dealt with transportation in their lives, but they're running the bureaucracy. And every one of these have their agenda. Transportation is to transform America by getting rid of natural gas and oil and promoting a green agenda. And you see this with the Interior Department. You see this with all the different bureaucracies. And so you have an army of people who are looking not to do legislation, but to actually make the bureaucracy into a legislative body where they put in new regulations and new controls. But it's not even that. Much of it is a transfer of money, taxpayers' money, to organizations. So you've got the first thing where your tax money is spent by regulatory government agencies pushing a political agenda. There's ads out there, digital ads, that basically are showing to the millennials and to people in their 20s promotion of the Build Back Better program, promotion of the infrastructure bill. And this is done by the Department of Transportation. And it's really having political consequences.
Wait a minute. How are they promoting? How can you promote a bill that's a completely political ad? How can you promote a bill that hasn't passed yet? That's a political ad.
It is. It's a total political ad, but it's because they can't. Nobody's holding them accountable. Nobody's trying to put them into certain boundaries. They do what they want. And so they see the next 4 years as the most important transformation of America, maybe in history. And they're the ones that have this ideology, which is their religion. And basically, there's really no right or wrong other than being able to transform our culture and politics. And so, if you've ever seen a zealot, a political zealot that's the radical left, they have all the truth. Everybody else is wrong. And that's what you have in the bureaucracy today. Melanie, even this is going to make you even more sick, and I think your listeners are going to be shocked to know that much of the money that's being spent by the federal government is being spent on nonprofit groups that are really political groups. If you do a search for community health centers, they're one of the most politicized groups in America today. They have an army of lobbying for socialized medicine and other political issues from climate change to you name it. And they register people to vote, and they keep in touch with these people on the local level and bring them out to the polls. It's completely political, and the federal government, in the last stimulus bill that Biden had, funded these with millions and millions of dollars of your money. And so there's these nonprofit groups that are reaching out to those who have crossed the border illegally. Nonprofit groups are reaching out to minorities in order to mobilize, activate them for political purposes. And that's your tax money at work right now.
That is crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And, it would seem like even what we're dealing with the border and what you're talking about with these community health centers and other organizations, that the government is breaking the law left and right, and no one is holding them accountable. I'm trying to figure out why, for example, the right is not holding the left accountable. I mean, I am certain. I'm not naive. Like, even though I am definitely a card-carrying Republican, I'm certain that Republicans are probably doing this as well, and that it needs to stop. But why is it that when one side of the aisle sees the other side of the aisle doing that they don't sue? Like, it seems to me they should be able to sue and win.
You would think so. Well, let's just take the example that we're seeing play out right now in Virginia. So Virginia, you have the bureaucrats within the school system, the school board members, which are basically puppets of the school union. We see the principals, and we see all the school establishment that are basically left-wing ideologues who are very happy to have critical race theory, a Marxist racism that separates people and divides people. They're using the tax money in that school to go to consultants and organizations to bring that into the classroom.
We definitely need to talk about that. I hate to cut you off. We're up against the hard break. We will revisit that topic on the other side of the break. We are talking to Craig Huey about how your tax dollars are being spent. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette. We'll be right back.
This is important because it's your money. Your money. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
And we're back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We are on with Craig Huey, and we're talking about the shocking ways that the government is spending your money. And before the break, we touched on how critical race theory is one of the things on which the government spends your money. Specifically, it's actually not only in schools, it's in a lot of places. Can you kind of continue on with what you were talking about critical race theory?
I'd be glad to. And Melanie, you're right. I mean, in the federal bureaucracy, in every division, from the obscure agencies all the way to the larger, better-known ones like the Department of Treasury and whatever, critical race theory is paying consultants and experts on how to bring that into the bureaucracy right now, your tax money at work. And what I was saying is about how in Virginia, critical race theory and masking were two of the biggest issues basically on the ballot when the new governor was running. And in an upset election, he won because these parents, local women and men who never were before involved in politics, stood up and said, enough is enough. We're not going to take it any longer. And they were out there demanding change and getting people to the poll and transform that election to a victory for a Republican that should have lost. And that was such an amazing thing. So the new governor, he fulfills his promise and says, we're not going to have indoctrination and propaganda to the students. And that was one of his executive orders first day. Then he also said, schools cannot force children to wear a mask. It's got to be voluntary in their choice. Parental choice was his number one issue. He wins. He makes the executive order. That's the law of Virginia. And then school districts that are filled with ideologues on the left, then they disobeyed the executive order. They disobeyed a government command. So now the Attorney General is having to file suit. New York, the Supreme Court says you can't force the masking, and then all of a sudden, the school districts do it anyway. So this is something that is a spirit of rebellion within these ideologues, where they're so right that they're above the law and they can get this thing done. It's a very sad mentality. But, I look at it as a business owner. I look at it as a dad. I look at it as a concerned citizen. This has got to stop. And the only way to stop it is coming up in 2022 with the election in November, that if people do what they did in Virginia throughout the United States, then we can have a Congress, Senate, and House that does investigations on these things. We obviously have to have heroes in Congress, heroes in the Senate, to be able to say, we've got to stop this, we've got to expose this. Now, there's not much they can do for the next 4 years. You're talking about millions and millions of dollars of our money going for political causes within the government, and millions and millions of dollars going to groups that are going to fight to have this bureaucracy continue in the next presidential election. So it's a nightmare scenario, but it can be turned around. I'm confident it can. And the starting point is the November election.
That is the starting point. One of the starting points is certainly the election, but I think the government overall needs an overhaul. One of the things that I do, one of the hats that I wear is as a freelance writer. And I was asked, I wrote an article for the Horn News. It's a website, and they asked me to write an article on regulations, on regulatory agencies and all the regulations that get written in association with laws. And for the audience's sake, many of you may or may not know this, but when the government passes a law, they have these regulators that write all the regulations in regard to the laws. So, like, it isn't just like a lot of times you'll hear on the news, okay, the government, the feds just passed this federal law, and you're thinking, okay, there's just this like one law on this piece of paper, and that's it. It's just like one sentence. No, that's not how it works. There are these regulators that write all these regulations that go with the law. And one of the things that I was assigned to do when I wrote this article was to research how many regulations there are. Do you know that there's so many regulations that the government literally does not know? There was no answer to that question because they write 8,000 regulations a year.
Yes.
That's how ridiculous it is. So I think that, like, with the advent of computers, I'm sure at this point they're computerized. They have to be.
Right, they are.
Right. So you would think that when they create conflicting, because what happens is nowadays that they'll pass a new law and some of the regulations will conflict with other regulations and they end up going to court to battle them out. It would seem to me they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like, they should. If you make a law that conflicts with another law, you shouldn't be able to do that. Like, somebody should be able to check and say, okay, we can't do that because that conflicts with another law. But that's not the way it works. It's insane.
It is insane, and this is part of a broken system. Whenever you have bureaucracy does a couple of things. One, bureaucracy protects itself from discovery. They want to be in their own fiefdom, nobody really knowing what they're doing. And that's been bureaucracy since the beginning of time. The second thing they want is more money. They've always got to figure out how to justify their existence to get more money. And now, sadly, the third thing has happened only recently, and that is that bureaucracy becomes ideology. Ideology is driving their decisions. We are, with the bloated bureaucracy we have on the local, local, state, and national level, there's got to be this draining of the swamp, this cleaning of house, stopping this. For the amount of jobs, the amount of regulatory issues that are killing these jobs, killing people's ability to make a living, and companies being able to pay better salaries, comes back to so many of these regulations you're talking about, Melanie, that are an obstacle to growth, obstacle to business. It creates frivolous lawsuits. It creates court cases. Business people are blindsided all the time. Sales tax counterdictions, federal regulation counterdictions. They're all faced with it, and it's almost impossible to navigate. But it's putting a stranglehold on the economy. It's hurting us all. So the framers of the Constitution envisioned a small federal government, and that smaller federal government does the essentials: national defense, a judicial system, to be able to make sure that the states are protecting people based upon the Bill of Rights. And then the state governments are going to be smaller, not involved in so much bureaucracy. And the same thing with the local governments. But today, it's just the opposite. Everything is growing bigger. Nobody's trying to stop it. The latest job growth figures, if you look at the latest job growth figures, a huge amount were in the public sector or the semi-public sector. What's growing is government, not so much new jobs. And this type of thing can only stop when the people say enough is enough.
And now, I find it surprising that they're able to do it so much on the local and state level, because the local and state levels tend to have to balance their budget where the federal government does not have to balance their budget, which is stunning. Full disclosure, my master's degree happens to be in public administration, and one of the things that I found to be most surprising is that when I took my budgeting classes, is that my budget did not have to be balanced. And not only did it not have to be balanced, but we budgeted with a deficit, which I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? Yeah. And then as we made adjustments with our budget, we adjusted the deficits. And I was like, we're making budgets with imaginary money. Like, this does not make any sense. And no wonder the government thinks that you can do that.
Yeah, it's such a nightmare. Your listeners can do something fun in their own local cities. Find out how much the city manager is making. Find out how much the superintendent of public education.
Yep, I already know off the top of my head how much they make. Yeah. And if they found out, they'd be stunned.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know how much they make.
Most people would say, "Oh, it's maybe 80,000, maybe it's 110,000, maybe it's 100." No,
it isn't.
And the same thing with, if you take a look at a city, how big was its budget, and how many bureaucrats did they have 10 years ago? How many do they have today?
And I'm trying to figure out how. Also, because they need to be, or at least they're supposed to be, because it's public money, they're supposed to be transparent about what they're spending money on. How are they fitting these $10,000 consultants into their budget, and people don't have a problem with that?
It's all hidden. They don't want people to see it. It's all hidden. In Virginia, the parents of these kids that were so upset started tearing apart where the payments were going to. And all of a sudden it uncovered a nightmare where these payments were going to political activists. They were going to companies that were basically trying to indoctrinate the kids. It would never be seen or heard if they had not gone to see where are these checks going to, because they can hide it. It's easy to hide it. And you're living your life. If you're retired, you're retired. If you're working, you're working. If you're a business owner, you're doing your business. You're not going to the city. You're not going to the school board. You're not going to the county. You're not going to the state and trying to unravel these issues. It took people who were volunteers to say, we've got to get to the bottom of this. And what they uncovered was so powerfully horrific that when it was disclosed to the other people who could care less about politics, who could care less about what was going on, when they discovered what was going on, it was an uproar, an uprising, and a brand new change of administration to basically drain the swamp.
And not for nothing, people are usually not paying attention, particularly on the local level. I mean, how you discover these things is you have to participate in your government. You have to go to the meetings. You have to read the agendas and see what things are being passed. You have to ask questions of the people who are running your government and ask them what the money is being used for. And a lot of people simply do not do that. I mean, they'll put it on the agenda, but you have to understand what it is that you're reading. And a lot of people don't participate in their government on that level. So how would they know?
It's very, very hard. And usually, it takes a support group of people. Sometimes people have certain talents to be able to help discover this. For example, I was on my school board's oversight committee. And what we saw was disgusting, because the school board basically showed how they were trying to hide things, not only from us, but from the taxpayers and the parents and everybody else, because they wanted to do what the educational establishment wanted them to do. And transparency to a bureaucrat is the worst thing in the world. Asking questions why this is happening is something they don't want to do. They want to be able to do what they want to do without accountability. And that's where people have to say, I'm going to step forward. I'm going to take a look at what really is happening. And we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to expose this. And we're going to stop this corruption.
We need to. We need to totally and completely stop this kind of corruption. And it doesn't, I think it's going on more now. I hate to sound biased, but I feel like it's going on more now in the Biden administration than it went on in the Trump administration. Because one of the things about politics is, and one of the great things about President Trump, is that he didn't owe anybody anything. Financially or otherwise, or politically. And so when you have a politician who doesn't owe anyone financially or politically, then there's nothing to be paid back. And you're totally free to govern properly.
Yes. Melanie, you nailed it. You nailed it. Whether you like Trump, neutral, dislike some of what he did, but loved his policies, whatever your position was, if he's your favorite candidate, the one thing about him, he did things no other politician would do. He said things no other politician would do, and he got things done no other politician could, because he was an outsider. He wasn't beholden to the bureaucracy, to the lobbyists, to all that. And that's refreshing. And that's why, Ronald Reagan once said, it's the citizens who have to rise up. Don't depend and rely upon the politicians. It's the citizens who are going to make the change, and that's every listener. They're responsible for taking a look at whether it's the local city, the county, the state, or the national. We're all responsible for making a change, because it has gone too far. It's bringing America down. It is where we've been today. You take a look back, even in a couple of years, what a mess. We have 3 more years of President Biden. If you can imagine what's going to happen in those 3 years, because he's got a politicized bureaucracy that is basically trying to transform our culture and our economy and our politics.
I would say with President Biden, it's deeper than that, because I think that President Biden owes more people than just the United States. I think he owes China I think he owes, you know what I mean? I think
many sources, many sources. And so, people have all kinds of different personal self-interest. I mean, really, you take a look at Dr. Fauci.
Well,
bureaucrat. How could a bureaucrat have millions of dollars on his, even in his bloated salary? There's no way he could have accumulated those millions of dollars. I'm always amazed when a judge or a senator or a congressman come in with almost nothing to their office, and they leave with millions of dollars where they've got 5, 10, 15, 20 million. I mean, a business owner struggles to get that. Individuals struggle to get a few million, a couple of million, $1 million.
Right.
They're will come up with multi-million.
On $150,000 a year salary. Like, their financial advisor must be a freaking genius.
Oh, my gosh. I wish I knew that broker.
Like, that's ridiculous. But how can even Dr. I mean, I could do a whole show on Dr. Fauci. How can he be as close to the Wuhan accident, lab leak, which I truly believe it was a lab leak? How can Dr. Fauci be as close, as deeply entwined with what happened in that Wuhan lab, and also be the guy who's in charge of mitigating the damage? Like, to me, he should be completely conflicted out. But that's how messed up our government is.
Exactly. But you know what? What's good about this illustration with Dr. Fauci? It's starting to crumble. The truth is starting to be revealed. People are starting to ask questions, but it's taken a long time. He's done a lot of damage. But eventually, what he's done and what has transpired is going to come out. And people are beginning to understand it. But they've got to understand what's going on today in Washington, D.C. is not right. It's got to change. And if it doesn't, it could be the end of America.
I agree with you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anywhere where people can follow you on social media or anything like that?
Absolutely. They can go to Craig Huey, CraigHuey.com, and get my free newsletter, and I cover topics like this.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I really appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We'll be right back.
Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. Thursdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette. That first hour, we had Craig Huey on. If you just missed it, he is a political and economic commentator, and he was just talking to us about some shocking ways that the government spends our tax money. I've known a few things about, because I'm just pretty politically involved, and because that's what I spent a lot of money on a master's degree on, is public administration. So that's kind of my wheelhouse, is public money and how they spend their money. You are not allowed to use taxpayer money for political purposes, but what Craig Huey really highlighted is that the government is absolutely doing that, which I should not have really found shocking, because it just really seems like the government does whatever it just darn well pleases these days. Just really does, and he really did a good job just laying out the way the government is doing that. The government is just really too big and way out of control, and just doing whatever it is that he wants to. So if you missed that first hour, that started around 7:20. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you can go back and listen to that. Our second hour, and coming up in a few minutes, we're going to have the one and only Victoria Wieck. And like I said earlier, if that name sounds familiar, that's because she has a beautiful line of jewelry that she used to sell on HSN for about 19 years. I think she sells it on Shop HQ now, and she's also the host of the $1 Million Passion podcast. So we'll be talking to her about overcoming obstacles and challenges. If you are sitting on $1 million passion and you want to start your own business or achieve a financial or business goal, we're going to talk about how you can do that. She has an amazing rags to riches story that I think will definitely encourage you. So we're going to talk to her about that in a few minutes. But in the meantime, we're going to talk a little more financial news. We talk a lot about cryptocurrency, or at least I like to give you little cryptocurrency updates. This week, cryptocurrency really has kind of taken a dive this week. Like, it's really not doing well. This is one of those weeks where you just don't want to log in, right, and look at your crypto account. I purposely, because it was all over the news this week that cryptocurrency was not doing well. So I was like, just don't log in, Mel. Don't log in. Don't look at it. So I didn't. I'm not gonna look at it this week. Not gonna log into my Coinbase account this week and look at what kind of damage has been done to my crypto account this week. I don't want to know. And besides that, the stock market has just been like topsy-turvy, ridiculous this week. Unfortunately, anybody who has one of those digital watches, either a Samsung watch or an Apple watch or whatever, one of the choices that you can continually look at is to have the stock market like on the face of your watch. And unfortunately for me, that's one of the things that I have on my watch. So when I look and see the time, I can also see how the stock market is doing. And it was just looking crazy all day. But one of the things that has definitely been down is crypto, like took a serious dip this week. But fear not, a lot of times when the stock market takes a dip, that's a good time to buy. So I ran into an article about 7 meme coins that might make you a millionaire in 2022. Now, it might make you a millionaire. It could also make you destitute because, as we all know, crypto is highly volatile. But I thought I'd share these with you anyway, just in case. I'm gonna after this week, after the crypto recovers a little bit, I'm gonna sign back into my crypto account and maybe move some stuff around and buy some of these. Diversify my crypto account a little bit and see what happens. And then sign out, maybe not sign in again for another 6 months. See what happens. But Safe Moon. Let's see. Dog Leon Mars is on here. Shiba Inu. We already knew about that. Monocoin, Dogecoin. I don't know how to pronounce this one. Samocoin. SAMOYED coin. And then Hodge Finance. I always put these articles on my social media, by the way. Follow me at Money Talk Mel on Twitter and at Money Talk Mel on Facebook. Like any of these articles that I talk about that I run into that I think is like a good look, good information, I always put on my social media. So you just don't have to rely on this as a podcast, or like if you didn't catch what I said, I always post it on my social media. So if you follow me there, you'll be able to find these stocks. And actually, I'm going to make sure I put it there like right now because I don't want to forget to put that on there, because I want to make sure I go in and move and buy some of these coins and just see what happens. That's one of the cool things about buying crypto. You can really kind of do whatever you want with it. Like, it's pretty flexible, which is what I like. But I will say, just use your play money. If you have play money, if you're fortunate enough to have some play money, use your play money for it. Like, don't use your retirement money. Don't use your money you're saving for your house. Don't use that. Use some play money. I use like a tiny bit that I invest every week. I don't even miss it. That I invest in crypto. And just to see what's going on. And every couple months or so, I pop into the account to see what's going on. And sometimes I like what's going on, sometimes not so much. We'll see. Now, it's 2022. It's a brand new year. Here's 8 great ideas to make and save money. A lot of these are common sense. Probably some things that we just forgot that we should be doing. Actually, me and my crackerjack producer John were talking about one horrible waste of money. Actually, right before the show, which is DoorDash. Like, it's absolutely the worst. Like, this isn't even on the list, but I just thought I'd mention it because I came in with some ice cream. And I was like, oh, my God, I should have brought you some. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible person. And I said, actually, I didn't even pick this up on my way here. I DoorDashed it and then left on my way here. And he was like, oh, my God, it's so expensive. I said, yeah, it is. I actually didn't even start DoorDashing until I had COVID, and I really didn't have a choice because I had no food in the house. So I just DoorDashed and slept. That's all I did while I had COVID. But yeah, DoorDash is a horrible waste of money. I go back and forth because I think I'm a good capitalist. And so, like, you're paying for a service, right? And so sometimes you're just in the bed or you're home and you're thinking, I really don't feel like going to Wawa right now. I'd totally give somebody $20 to go to Wawa for me right now, right? Like, I'd give somebody. And so DoorDash knew that there were people who were lazy and were home and thinking, I'd totally pay somebody $20 to go to Wawa for me right now. And hence, that was like the birth of DoorDash. So there you go. But it's really like, it's so much money. It's a waste of money. But, capitalism, and if they're making money, and if the DoorDashers, listen, one of my DoorDash guys, shouldn't say one of my DoorDash guys, one DoorDasher came by, and he was legit driving a Land Rover. Like a nice one. I was like, really? Like, what? I'm like, I'm in the wrong business, man. Yeah, but anyway, so I would say, I don't know if it's on this list or not, but you should probably cut out some of the DoorDash if you want to save some money. Just saying, DoorDash is super expensive. It just is. It's ridiculous. Okay, 8 great ideas to make and save money. Because the beginning of the year is always, we do resolutions and things like that. So we think it's a good time for new beginnings, like working out and all that kind of stuff. I didn't even go there. This year. I'm going to work out. No, you're not, Mel. Let's not do that. Okay. So refinance your mortgage and student loans. Good time to do that. That's a good idea. It's a good look. Do it soon. Let's do that. That's a good idea. Don't, because mortgage rates are still low, but as we're looking at inflation and, the Fed chairman, who is just not, I don't know what's wrong with the Fed. They're just not doing a very good job, but they're now looking and saying we may need to raise rates soon. So if you're going to refinance, like, now's the time to do it because they're going to raise rates soon and then you're going to have a whole problem. So you need to, if you're going to refinance, you need to do it sooner rather than later. So make sure you do that sooner rather than later. Oh, no. Okay. Let me go back to that. Definitely going to try that. Because they're talking about raising rates like 5 or 6 times in 1 year, like something really ridiculous. Make sure you do some homework. You always want to do. Okay, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I hate when I have dead air like that, but I'm having technical difficulties. Okay, here we go. All right, good. All right, so make sure you do some homework on the financial markets. That's always a good idea before you invest in things like that. Don't just go by like ads and things like that you see on social media. You would think that would be common sense, but you never know. Prioritize your health and wellness. This is particularly true as you get older. I feel like I go to a lot of doctor's appointments, particularly after I hit 50. Like now, I feel like I just go to a lot of doctor's appointments. But it's a good idea to be proactive about your health and wellness. You'll feel like you're more in control mentally and financially. A lot of employers have like proactive programs for your physical, mental, and financial health. And I would argue that in the era of a global pandemic, that's even more appropriate to be proactive. Treat yourself. And what they mean by that is to maximize your credit card rewards. I'm really bad at this. I am very, very bad. Like, I feel like I have access to a lot of stuff like this. The schools that I've gone to have a lot of different rewards. I belong to like a ton of organizations that have tons of rewards that I have access to. They email me about them all the time, and I don't take advantage of them. I have to do better. I have to do a better job, and I don't. So you should treat yourself with some of these rewards. I'm going to try to do better with that myself. Keep me accountable, folks. Okay. Review and streamline your monthly subscriptions. Yes, I am also bad at that. I think I did it last year. Maybe I'll try it again this year. I think I did, like, at some point, work on that. There is an app called Truebill that can help you track your subscriptions, and you can cancel your unwanted subscription services that you no longer need. Now, I use an app to track my money called Mint.com. It's a free app, and that really will help you see where you're spending money unnecessarily. It's very helpful, and sometimes that will help you. Like, why did I spend, $200 this year on that? And you'll go ahead and cancel that stuff. So that's helpful. This is a good one. Update your designated beneficiaries. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff you don't want to think about, but it does need to be done. Like if you got a divorce or you got remarried or something like that, you want to make sure that like your ex-husband or your ex-wife isn't still, the beneficiary. I mean, you don't want your last act while you're on this side of the earth that, your ex to get, be the beneficiary of your demise. Just saying. So make sure you update that. If you're getting older, you're getting closer to retirement, make sure you ramp up your retirement savings. Also, while we're talking about it, if you're getting closer to retirement, then you want to make sure that you are less aggressive with your investments, but less aggressive as far as your risk, but upping the amount that you're putting away, if that makes sense. Start a 529 plan. Do that as early as possible. That's a college savings plan. I don't know. My parents' college savings plan was good luck to you. I worked 2 jobs during my undergrad. I don't know when that started being a thing that parents were supposed to pay for your college. My parents did not. They did not. I worked very hard. I actually was telling my students the other day that I worked at a store called, is Foot Locker still around? Is that still okay? Because I had my producer says yes it is, because I had my students looking. I taught them about the stock market the other day, and I had them looking up stocks, and one of my students looked up Foot Locker, and I told them that when I was in undergrad I worked at Foot Locker, and they did not believe me. I was like, why do you not believe me? And they're like, because you're mean. You couldn't have worked I was like, I totally sold sneakers at Foot Locker. I did. And I was good at it, too. Yeah, but I did. It was fun. But anyway, I did that. Now, this was a great article because I can completely related to this article. I found this in Business Insider. The article was titled, I budget 10% of my income for freelance help, and it's worth every penny. Here's who I hired and how much it costs. Now, this may sound super strange, right? But I read this book one time on time management. I can't remember what the title of the book was, but it was a book about time management. Anyway, one of the things that the book said was, how do you decide whether or not you should pay for a service? And the long and the short of it was, you take how much money you make, right? How much you get paid per hour. And if you can pay somebody, if it's less than what you make per hour, then it's worth it for you to pay somebody for that service. So, in other words, let's say you make more than $10 an hour, and you have to pay somebody $10 an hour to do laundry. Well, then it's worth it for you to go ahead and pay somebody to do laundry for you. Consequently, I haven't done laundry in years. So this, I've been doing the fluff and fold for years. I haven't done laundry in so long. And I agreed with all of this. I think I actually do all of this. This person says they pay a web page designer. Yep. MoneyTalkWithMelanie.com. I do not do. I pay somebody to do that. It's tedious, and I literally teach web page design. Like, it's not that I don't know how to do it. I just don't want to do it. It's very tedious. I pay somebody. My boy Taylor in New York does a great job, and I email him my stuff, and he takes care of my website. Google Ads specialist. I don't know how to do Google Ads. I bet Taylor does. I have to talk to him about that. A proofreader. There's an app for that. Grammarly, exactly. That's what John just said, Grammarly. That's what I use. A social media manager. There's an app for that. That's what I use. And whenever I need somebody to design stuff for me, I have somebody for that. Yep, I use somebody for that. A virtual assistant. I have used a virtual assistant. If I get tied up, I will use one. Absolutely. Sometimes I get super busy and I use a virtual assistant. And that's what this person says that they use. And I absolutely do the same thing. You would be surprised how inexpensive it is to outsource freelance stuff. I'll give you guys a little tip. Fiverr, Fiverr. You can go there and literally pay somebody to do anything. If you want to curse somebody out, there's like a special crazy section where you can pay somebody $5 to call someone else and just curse at them. Not even kidding. It's hilarious. So anyway, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I am your host, Melanie Collette. We'll be back with Victoria Wieck in a few minutes.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
And we're back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette. And our next guest that we have, I'm very excited to have her on. Her name is Victoria Wieck, and she is the host of $1 Million Passion podcast. And in addition to that, she has some beautiful jewelry that she used to sell on HSN. That's where I remember her from. And she sells it on, I believe, Shop HQ now. And without further ado, Ms. Victoria Wieck. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Absolutely, Melanie. It's such an honor and to be on your show. I've listened to your show, and you're just an amazing dynamite host.
Oh, well, thank you. I remembered how to pronounce your name from HSN. I believe I have some of your jewelry.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's the ultimate honor, definitely.
Yeah. I was like, I remember her, and then I Googled you. I was like, wait a minute. I have her jewelry. When I Googled you, I was like, I remember her. I have her stuff. Yep. It's very good to talk to you.
Same here. I'm just so excited to share this time with you. Like I said, I've listened to you, and it's just an honor to be on your show as a guest. I
really appreciate you saying that. Well, listen, I told the audience that I really wanted to speak to you about the question of sitting on $1 million passion and overcoming obstacles. But before we dig into the topic, I'd love for you to tell the audience about your background, because you have such a great story.
Yeah, so I was born in South Korea in a little seaside village. I grew up, not really knowing much. You're a kid, you just think you have everything. And but my parents brought me here because they had 4 daughters in a society where they didn't really value girls. I mean, girls were aborted, abandoned. They were given up. If you look at a lot of the children being adopted out of Asia, they're mostly girls, very few boys. So they brought us here, and then we found out, after we got here, we actually, in Korea, everybody is Korean, right? They're all Korean. So we didn't really see anything like racism or, we had other issues, but that was one that we didn't see. So we come here in the 1970s, and all our money got frozen, and so we ended up with $30, no friends, no, we knew no one, and we couldn't even go back. We were stranded. But from that start, I never gave up hope. I did the one thing I could do for myself every single day. And in those years, the thing I could do for myself was learn to speak English. And, I just circled words in dictionary, and I would, basically when my parents went to work, I would look at the English dictionary and I try to memorize some of these words. So even to this day, I think about the one single thing you could do that's actionable, that's measurable today to help yourself. And so in 1989, when I was an adult, I realized that I didn't have a childhood. I was 13 years old when we got here. So the one thing I didn't want to do is leave my children with a nanny while I went to work, because that's basically my parents kind of abandoned me, when we were young. So I started my company hoping that I could make $2,000 a month, and that was my goal. But within 18 months, I actually did $1 million, and then within the next 3 years, I did $10 million, and then, it just went on and on and on. So I ended up with quite a bit of money at the end. So that's my story.
Wow. That's amazing. And I love hearing stories like that because you're an overcomer, not a victim. You know what I mean? And
right. I would
just,
never, yes.
Right.
Agree. I never consider myself a victim. I mean, there were plenty of, it was illegal at that time to say, we can't rent to Orientals. And my dad got that all the time. And he would be like, he didn't speak English. And he's like, what's an Oriental? Like, what did I do wrong? But, we never, ever saw ourselves as victims. We were here in this country, somebody else's country. It was up to us to make things happen. And, we took one day at a time. And, and as my story, I ended up doing, with my own show on TV, not only here, but also in Japan and other countries. And I built a nice little business. And you may not know this, Melanie, but I've never had any debt on my business. I never spent any money on advertising. And to do the amount of dollars I've done with none of that, it's just all organic traffic, organic, I have to build those relationships one at a time, and I didn't care, if somebody was old or young or, whatever their, if they were Buddhist, anti-guns, whatever, I just treated everybody as I want to be treated, and I ended up doing pretty well at the end.
And you started your business, pre-social media. Mm-hmm. Like this.
So I started my business. Yeah, we had no money. Okay, we had no money. I was still supporting my parents and the rest of my siblings, but I had no money. I didn't even have money to make a single jewelry sample. Okay, so how do you sell jewelry without any samples? So in the early days, Melanie, when I spoke no English and I went to school and I couldn't tell my teachers I want to go to the bathroom, I was a little shy too. I would go quietly and I would draw a toilet. So I had to draw things out in those years. And then when I got older, I continued drawing and painting to express my emotions. So later on, when I became a jewelry designer, those drawing skills came in very, very handy because I was able to express my feelings in the drawing. So I drew these designs out. I went down to the Neiman Marcus in Exit down on Rodeo Drive, and I would tell them, I don't know anything about business. I'm not a jewelry designer. I want to be one someday, but, is there any way you can just take a look at I'm so embarrassed to even show this to you, but is there any way you can take a look at it and see if there's anything here that could be marketable? And the manager there was like, oh, my God, we can sell every one of these, today. Can you leave that? And I said, well, for how much? Because I didn't have a sample or anything. And they're like, it doesn't matter how much it is. They would love it. Just leave it here. I'll sell it for you. They don't care how much money it is. And so then I went across the street to Saks Fifth Avenue. I got the same kind of a response. So I realized there was a market for it, right there. But that was not the rest of America, obviously. So I kept on, took up my sketchbooks. I went to all the other stores near me, all the way out to the ghetto. And I got a pretty good reading. And so that was my sort of like a focus group, I guess. And, very elementary focus group that cost me basically a tank of gas, really.
So what was it about you that made you think that was a possibility? Would you say that had to do with your mindset? Would you say that it was desperation because it was your only choice? Like, how would you characterize what motivated you to go do that?
I probably both, a little bit of desperation, and I didn't have choices. The only choice I could make at that time was to either go to work, and I had worked, for a while, and it was like 12 hours a day, and I was commuting 3 hours a day, an hour and a half each way. It was not sustainable. So I made a decision, I'm going to go into my own business. And at that time, I didn't really have a choice. I had no money. When you have no choice at all, the answer is yes or no, right? Like you either go forward or you go backward. So I was really shy. I mean, literally, I told these people, like, I'm just like really embarrassed, like, to show it to you. And I fully expected her to say yes, and plenty of people have said yes. And when they do say yes, in the beginning, I was like, God, that's just, I mean, I know, like, she did probably, I have no right to even ask her, but she was just kind of mean about it. She was just nasty. But, within the first year, I realized when somebody says no, that's just feedback. I would go right away. If somebody says no, I would say, thank you so much for, letting me know that so I can, work on improving my design. And, is there anything there that you think was in a better direction than all the other pieces? I would keep the dialogue going. And eventually, they would tell me why I didn't like it. They might say, you know what, I like the design, but it was way too big. Or, I like the design, but, I need it to be a little bit more bling or whatever. Whatever feedback they give you, I incorporated it, redrew them, sent it out until they loved it. So, I just didn't kind of give up and kept on going because that was the only tool I had was just to continue talking to them. I guess I didn't have anything else.
But you must have a gift in that regard. I have a friend who says, if you don't ask, you don't get.
True.
And it is very true. I mean, I was telling a friend the other day that I try to make a habit of being in the same room with people who are smarter than me. There's an old
Absolutely.
saying, I believe, that if you're the smartest person in a room, then you're in the wrong room.
You're definitely in the wrong room. Yeah. No, I want to have the cheapest house on the block.
Right. Absolutely.
The dumbest person in the room. I agree with you, but the other thing I want to really, anybody who's listening to really think about, when you think about rejection, like when people reject you, it's not personal. Even if it's personal, what do you have to lose, right? It's just like, I think some of this has to do with self-esteem. I used to think too, whenever I got rejection, and I got a lot of it, believe me, I would tell my dad, he made amazing sacrifices to get here so that I would be free to, choose my way, my path. And if I'm too afraid to go out and ask questions, then maybe I didn't even deserve that sacrifice. So I just went out every day. I wrote 50 letters. I typed them on a typewriter, IBM typewriter with the little liquid eraser thing. Every day I would write, and, most of them didn't write back to you or call you back. But I would get about 5% of the people, write back to you and, politely say no. I would have about 5% of those people say, give me some pricing and things like that. So I wrote 50 letters every single day, 7 days a week. That didn't cost. It was first class stamp. That's it.
That's amazing. Listen, we're going up against a break. When we come back, I'd love to talk about some obstacles and how to overcome them, and a little bit about your podcast, if you would.
Oh, great. I love that.
Yep. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We're talking to the fabulous Victoria Wieck. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back. We're talking to the one and only Victoria Wieck. She is the host of the $1 Million Passion podcast. She also is a fantastic jewelry designer. If you have watched HSN over the last 20 years, or I believe it's Shop HQ is where we can find your jewelry as well.
That's right. Just so you know, I've sold over 10 million pieces of jewelry.
I have one. I have at least one. I have at least one of those pieces.
Right. It's quite a few. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's quite it had been quite a ride. I wasn't planning on my life turning out to where it did. I just focused on one thing at a time every day. And that's what happened. So.
Yep, that's fantastic. So I wanted to talk to you a bit about obstacles. And because I like the fact that you said that you could achieve your goals at any age and overcoming fear, because I think fear is a big thing. Fear and anxiety that holds people back. I've shared with the audience. I think with the audience, or sometimes I confuse sharing with the audience and sharing with my producer as the same thing. Because John and I talk in between, like during the commercial. So I think I told the audience. I may have just told John.
Yeah, but he is the audience too. He's listening to you.
He is. He has no choice because he's got to sit here during the commercial. So he just pretends to be interested. But I used to have like terrible, horrible stage fright. Like, used to get sick and cry before I sang because I used to be in the choir, or went on stage because I used to do plays. Why would I do that to myself? And now, I'm on the radio. I do speeches and I'm on TV. I do all kinds of stuff, and I used to have debilitating stage fright. So,
right,
you can. It's wild how fear is really just super imaginary.
Yeah, I think that the fear, first of all, that limits you from everything you do. So you have to overcome your fear. And, why do you have this fear? For me, it was really not having courage to try things, not having courage to fail. Just accept the fact that you are going to fail in a lot of things in life. Not everybody succeeds the first time. I mean, look at these downhill skiers. I mean, show me one that never failed. Show me one that never fell. I mean, it's just literally, life is all about, failures and learning from them. And so you get that courage by making some bad choices and having some bad experiences, because you will survive that. And then, there's a great analogy that I love, is that a butterfly starts, as a caterpillar. And if you go to butterfly farms or, places like that, you can actually watch them just come to life, in St. John and all these places. If humans try to help this little caterpillar, come out of its shell, it actually dies, okay? It doesn't have the strength to fly. So just by struggling through this and struggling and cracking open its own little shell, it basically earns the strength to fly. So think about that. Humans are supposed to actually experience life, peaks and valleys, and you're gonna fail. I guarantee you that. But you're also gonna survive. So I would say, you don't get the confidence to go out there until you go out and face the world. And I would say that the other thing I would say too is, for me, when, I was going to school, kids who were coming to school with switchblades and guns. I mean, it was just horrible. But I would say, I had no friends. I would say to myself, as long as I could sit here and still really complain and whine about anything, I can use that time to better myself, because no one's going to look out for me. So, just complaining, it doesn't accomplish a thing. So for me, it's find my purpose. Find the thing you can do to help yourself. Do all those things. Then you can complain more if you want to. But funny enough, when you do something, it actually works sometimes. Oftentimes you better yourself, believe it or not.
I find it interesting because I feel like now we live in a time where, particularly with kids, that the parenting skill or the parenting methods nowadays are that we protect kids from all discomfort. Like they're never supposed to feel stress. They're never supposed to cry. They're never supposed to have challenges or be upset. Like it's never, and it's like, wait a minute.
I agree.
Like life is challenging. Like you're supposed to have a challenge. That is part of life. Failing is part of life. Being upset, like just because you're upset doesn't mean that like it's okay that you were upset while you were doing that assignment. I'm also an educator, and I'll have parents being like, well, he was really upset while he was doing that assignment because he found it difficult. And I'm like, okay, when I was getting my degree, I found statistics difficult. It happens. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, okay, yes, it was difficult, and then I figured it out, and, okay, all right. Like, I'm sorry he found it difficult. Did he figure it out?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think, Melanie, that's considered lack of parenting.
Well, yeah.
It's really lack of parenting, and they're actually hurting their own children because these kids will never, let me tell you something. At some point in my life, I made a lot of money, and I could have easily sent my children to private schools, but they went to all public schools because I felt like the private school environment that I would, put my kids in would not be like a real world. Okay, these parents were pampering their kids. It's not real world. They would never learn how to deal with conflict resolution. There's a lot of stuff they would never learn. So my kids were actually in public schools all the way through high school. But, and if she, my kids come back and say, oh, so-and-so is this or that, I just say, why don't you talk to her? I'm not going to sit there, basically after having tried talking to her instead of talking to me about it. So, they kind of figure out how to, handle these things. But I agree with you. The parenting, I didn't have parents because my parents didn't speak any English, so they couldn't help me with any homework. They couldn't help me translate anything. I had to do it all on my own. And I think in the end, that actually gave me the tools to navigate. Regarding that, negotiating, like I have great negotiating skills. I've, cut some of the biggest contracts in some of the TV stations, here in Japan, HSN, all of the duty-free stores, without a lawyer, because I was able, not because I'm smart, but just because I was able to learn these conflict resolution, learning compromises, understanding how to read people. All these things you learn in the schoolyard pretty young, if you let yourself learn these things. You know what I mean? That's
very true. So if you feel like you're sitting on $1 million passion, right? And you feel like, I think one of the things that definitely stops people from starting a business is they're like, oh, I have to have a big investment as financially.
No, you don't. Yeah.
How would you recommend somebody get started with an idea or something that they have to start a business? Where do they begin? Because I feel like a lot of people feel like they don't have a place to begin.
Yeah, I think it's, first of all, you have to be very, very clear on what you want to do. When you talk to most people, they're like, first of all, I would ask myself, if I were you, what would I do with my time if I never had to worry about money? What would I do with my time? Because that's where your passion lies. So, because a lot of people would say, I want to do this, I want to do it, because they think that'll make the most amount of money. So you have to get back to what you really love first, okay? And then you have to answer, who do you want to serve? Because the only way you make money, and you know this, Melanie, as well as I do, probably better than I do for sure, is that as an entrepreneur, you don't make any money until you make a difference in somebody else's life, until you add value to somebody else's life, either with your product or with your service or whatever. You don't make a dime. So you have to figure out who do you want to serve, and why are you uniquely qualified to do that. So it could be that your passion is in gardening. It could be that your passion is in cooking. And I mean, if you come to my podcast, I actually have most of the people I interview on my podcast have high school degrees. Okay, 70% of them have high school degrees, and they're all millionaires. And they have like quirky things, like their hobby was cooking, or their hobby was trying to lose 5 pounds, or something like that. But they've turned it into a niche market where you don't need thousands of social media followers. You only need the first 1,000 raving fans. I think Tim Ferriss said that, to really, multiply that message, amplify, elevate and amplify your message, and you are going to get traction. That's what I did with my jewelry line. I started with, as I told you, I started with no money. I mean, sketch pad and number 2 pencil. 10 cash is what I got started, and I did $500 million. As of 2017. It's grown since then. But the point is, every hobby, every passion, if you're really passionate about it and you can prove that you can serve others, then it will turn into, I don't think, I'm not going to sit here and say everybody's going to make $500 million, but $1 million is very doable.
$1 million is super doable if you can focus on where what it is that you want to do. And I think there's so much information out there. Like, I feel like we're inundated with information, right?
We're inundated with information, but focus on the basics. And I love, I kind of live by my company, really, everybody in my company lives by 2 things. Actually 3 quotes. One is by Nelson Mandela, and he, basically says, everything seems impossible until it's done.
Ooh.
That means, no matter how impossible it looks, it can be done, and it will be done, because not getting it done is not an option. So you better get moving, right? So,
right?
It's not an option. I love that quote. The second quote I love is Maya Angelou's quote, talking about how people will forget what you've said, people will forget what you've done, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So in my jewelry business, instead of telling them, you can't afford this, so I came up with this, inexpensive stuff, that marketing message doesn't resonate at all. But if you really make them feel like they're somebody, their life has meaning, and they don't need to waste money because they're smart. That was my message, and, I ended up doing quite well with that. So, just really in all your messaging, if you're a small business owner right now and you have a website, go and look at how many times you say the word I. So instead of saying, I'm the expert in this, and I do this, and I've done all this, I won these awards, and I did, whatever, and I can help you, okay, versus, hey, you've come to the right place. We've been struggling with, X, Y, Z, because you don't have to suffer anymore. You looked everywhere. So you use the word you, for every I you use the word you 5 times. So you is the most powerful word in marketing. And then the third quote I love, it's not a quote, it's actually a line from a song by Whitney Houston, from the song Destiny. And there's a line that says that my finest day is yet unknown. So, the future is bright. You know what I mean? Like, things are going to get better. So your finest day is yet unknown, no matter, look, Whitney Houston was pretty popular singer at that time.
Right.
Probably the best singer of all time. And she was still saying her finest day was yet unknown. So, keep on improving yourself, because there's, no matter how, well off you are, how perfect you are, there's still room for improvement and continue to evolve. So I just think that if you have your heart in the right place and you really focus on what you are passionate about, and you want to serve a group of people that you think would benefit from that, trust me, the rest of it is almost like science. You are going to make money.
I like it. I think that's excellent.
Money will follow.
I think that's excellent, and I think that's really excellent advice. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. You did such a good job. I knew you would.
Thank you. Well, you know what? You guys check out my podcast, $1 Million Passion. It's like a masterclass on its own. And then check me out on victoriawieck.com for everything else I do. And Melanie, thank you so much for everything. And your producer, he's fantastic too. I'm sure he's been listening to us as well.
He is. He actually said you were really interesting. Yeah, he did. He said that during the break. And
thank you so much.
And he's awesome. He is.
Yeah, every show needs a great producer. Trust me, I'm on TV. Bad producer can really ruin a show.
Yep, absolutely. So far, I've been really lucky, but John is great. Thank you so much, Victoria. You were fantastic.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep, bye-bye. Have a great night.
Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. Thursdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your host, Melanie Collette. If you missed the first hour, we had the one and only Craig Huey on. He talked to us about shocking ways that the government spends our tax dollars, which is truly shocking because he really talked about political ways that the government spends our money, which is actually really crazy because the government is not supposed to be spending our money in political ways, but they most definitely are. And he did a nice job laying it out for us. And then for the second hour, we switched gears and talked to Victoria Wieck, who is a jewelry designer and entrepreneur who immigrated here from Korea and taught herself English and is a very successful entrepreneur and is also the host of the podcast $1 Million Passion podcast, and she just did a fabulous job talking to us about overcoming obstacles in business. So if you missed any of that, you definitely want to go back and listen to that. You also want to make sure to check me out on Newsmax on the show American Agenda on Monday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and on the Red and Black Show on YouTube at 12 o'clock noon this coming Saturday. There's supposed to be some snow this weekend if you're on the East Coast. It's either going to be no snow or a foot of snow. I want to be a meteorologist when I grow up, because that's or like a COVID variant predictor, because those are the only two jobs where you don't have to be right, apparently. So I definitely want to do that. So anyway, look out for those two things. And this is how well the show is going. I actually have my two guests for next week booked already. Usually I don't have them booked till Monday. Now, funny story. One of the things I do, like if my guest has a name that I'm not sure how to pronounce, I will email them and ask them to send me the phonetic spelling so that I can practice pronouncing it, so that I can have a better idea of how to pronounce the name. So I did that with next week's guest, and they sent me the phonetic spelling, and funny story, I still have no idea how to pronounce it. And I'm looking, I was going to tell you the guest's name, but I'm looking at it right now, and still I got nothing. So I'll have it nailed down by next week. I'll have that guest name totally nailed down by next week. But I actually have the next 2 weeks four guests scheduled for the next couple weeks. So I'm looking forward to talking to all of those people. Don't forget to follow me on IG at Melanie T. Collette on IG, on Facebook at Money Talk with Melanie, on Twitter at Money Talk Mel. If you are really daring and want to follow my political musings, at NJGOP Diva. I want to thank my guests, Craig Huey and Victoria Wieck. You guys were fabulous. And thank my producer, John. You're the best. Thank all my listeners here at 98.7 The Coast. You guys rock. Remember, all of this is very important because, after all, it's your money. Have a great night.